look, it's a hard act to follow Abby's fantastic talk, so I'm going to stick with what I've got. And hopefully people can bear with this. So let me just bring up my notes here quickly. This is a very light-hearted, light humor talk on looking around us as documentarians. Um, and this inspiration for this lightning talk came from something that happened a few years back at work. A product manager, he included me in a couple of meetings around some UI prototyping and APIs, and to get some feedback on how we could improve this and how we could discuss this information or use this information in our technical documentation. And then I was asked to present a technical document to general managers to get their input. You know what? I've never been this overwhelmed in a tech writing scenario ever before. Like for quite some time, if you've worked in any sort of corporate, government, or regulatory environments or non-software companies, you will realize the enormity of all this. You know what? I was also very happy to see Ryan's talk on empathy advocacy earlier today, which has so much good stuff on delivering bad news. So yeah, firstly, some disclaimers. These are just my interpretations. You can choose to disagree. We can still be friends. No SMEs were harmed as part of this presentation, and names and titles have been fudged or not. Maybe we'll have a look. And again, it derives its inspiration from a book. Documentarians love books. So let me set a bit of context. Because what is good documentation without context, right? So this book, The 5 People You Meet in Heaven, I don't know how many of you here have read this, but it talks about Eddie, an 83-year-old man working at Ruby Pier. Ruby Pier is a fantastic attraction and amusement park for all ages, and Eddie has been a ride operator and mechanic for many, many years. Today, unfortunately, is the last day of his life. Eddie doesn't know it, but one of his rides is going to fail, and he will be crushed by a passenger cart while trying to save a young girl. After death, Eddie goes to heaven and meets 5 people. Instead of experiencing a lush garden of paradise, Eddie finds heaven to be a place where your earthly life is explained by a number of people. Each person helps Eddie understand, different parts and unseen connections of his life. Now, I read this book a few years back, and I wondered if I could draw some parallels to documentation. Let's have a look. Let's start with something positive, empathy. We are all connected. Every act we perform has a direct impact on someone else. This is what Ryan was essentially saying in his talk before on, empathy advocacy. We may not realize it, but someone will be affected by our actions. You never quite know the impact of a simple good deed. How does this translate to documentation? Well, look at the list of people here, people who work alongside us, testers, instructional designers, trainers, UX writers, content specialists. All of them are pretty much in the same boat, waiting on information. They understand the value of sticking together because a simple good deed will do so much for someone else. Second kind of person you meet in documentation. Look, sacrifice isn't a bad thing if it's helping others. To me personally, these are people who understand the value of documentation. They have crossed over and can see the big picture and make these connections effortlessly. I'm always on the lookout for such people in workplaces. You know what? As a tech writer, I often meet people who are highly efficient in their day-to-day tasks and excel in it, but often caught out because they don't see the big picture. However, you'll see on the other side, there are people who understand systems, who understand processes, who understand other people and are connected. Word of advice, if you've come across such people in your careers, befriend them. They are a real treasure. All right. With the good comes the bad or not so good. The third person Eddie met told him, let go. Holding anger is a poison. Holding at anything is bad, to be honest. Any guesses who this translates to? Look, it could be potential anyone who is, anti-documentation. I'm not saying all of these people are, bad apples. However, more often than not, these are people who like to do everything in their power and are often time poor when it comes to sharing knowledge. They also seem to carry a grudge sometimes against documenting. Deception, subterfuge, smoke and mirrors, all these words that spring out of you out of a dictionary or a spy thriller. We see some of this creep into the work practices. You know what? All I can say is thank God for chocolates and donuts and being able to use the superpowers of listening, empathizing, and resourcefulness. If you love someone, even from afar, even if they are gone, it's still love. Managers, team leaders who often, know what battles to pick, how to manage upwards and downwards and still deliver brilliant outcomes. Getting to work with a good product manager is often a make or break for me. A good product manager values your contribution and acknowledges your work and paves the way for easy transfer of knowledge. Over the last couple of years, I've been really lucky to be able to work with such people. And lastly, this is it. We're all right where we're supposed to be. We shouldn't be comparing ourselves to others. Focus on our own work and let the world take you where it needs the most. This was the fifth person Eddie met in heaven. I think this applies to a lot of us as documentarians, and I get a little philosophical sometimes about this. It's a simple but a powerful thought. I am realizing I am where I need to be right now. And that's it.